What's going on, everybody? This is your host, C-WEYZEY, coming back at you today with another video. And today I got something a little bit different, a little bit interesting for you. Today we're going to discuss the 12-team college football playoff as it is before tonight's rankings on December 3rd. Right now I'm recording this about 10 a.m. Central Time. Y'all should see this around 4:30 p.m. Central Time. So, going to give y'all a little look before tonight on my thoughts and how I think the committee, might handle things on Sunday, after the conference championship weekend. And also going to give you my personal thoughts. Going to tell y'all what I think the committee is going to do, and then tell y'all what I would personally do as well. And if y'all want to see some more content like this, just let me know. I mean, I'm open to it. If y'all want to see it, hey, I'll do it. Anyway, let's get into this first bracket that I created. As you can see, I have Boise State, Texas, Arizona State, Oregon, and Clemson all winning their conference championships. And I gave Clemson the bye over Boise State. Now, I could see an argument, Boise State over Clemson, and I'm with you. I hear you. I can see that happening as well. But what I think the committee will do in that situation is give Clemson the bye because it's technically a Power 4 conference. And if they beat SMU, SMU is a top 10 team. Boise State will be going against UNLV, which is a top 25 team, but not a top 10. And that's how I think that would go. But I could definitely see Boise State going to that number 4 spot. Don't get me wrong on that. I mean, just flop Clemson and Boise State. There you go. But this, like I said, either way, flip Boise and Clemson. Either way, I'm fine with it. But this is what I came up with. But this is some very interesting matchups in round 1. You got SMU going to Notre Dame. Georgia going to Indiana. Boise State going to Penn State, or you could have Clemson going to Penn State. Both would be interesting matchups. And then Ohio State going to Rocky Top. That's a very fantastic first round, people. I personally, with Ohio State losing to Michigan, an unranked team, and having their second loss, that's where I would put them. I would put them. The committee might put them at 9, but me personally, I'd put them at 10. I've seeded everybody in the first round, kind of based off of the last college football playoff rankings, and then how teams lost and everything. But I also nudged Ohio State down and Georgia up because I'd rather see Georgia go to Indiana than Ohio State go to Indiana. I want to see new matchups. I don't want to see repeats. We already kind of know what's going to happen. It's just the home field advantage is swapped. I would much rather see Ohio State go to Rocky Top, and I'd much rather see Georgia go to Indiana. Very, very, I think, interesting scenarios and outcomes, and even weather, especially in Indiana. That we could have a snow game. How will Georgia handle the snow, people? I think that's just very, very fascinating. And then, depending on who wins, that's some really good second round matchups as well. I mean, we're in for a treat. All right. For those of you who are wondering, like, okay, you gave us these 5 champions. What if the other 5 win? I got you. Here you go. This bracket is based off of the other 5 champions. If Iowa State won, if Penn State won, if SMU, Georgia, and UNLV won, this is what I have. I have Iowa State, Penn State, SMU, Georgia, all with a first round bye, okay? And then your first round matchups will be as follows. UNLV, Oregon. You have Indiana going to Tennessee. You have Miami going to Texas, and Ohio State going to Notre Dame. Okay. Once again, you could do some flip-flopping here. You could put Ohio State at the 9 spot, still have an Ohio State-Tennessee matchup, and then you could have Indiana going to 10 and go into Notre Dame. I think those would be two fantastic matchups. The one bad matchup in this first round would be UNLV and Oregon, which you could say that in the other bracket as well, but I think SMU Notre Dame would be a much funner matchup at that 12-5 spot. Now, as y'all have seen, I have Ole Miss to the right and Alabama to the left. And the reason why I have those there is because of the College Football Playoff Committee. The two brackets that you've seen, minus, flip-flopping a couple of teams, those 12 would be my teams in those two brackets. But because of the College Football Playoff Committee and what they've shown us, especially last year, leaving out a 13-0 Florida State and a 12-1 Georgia, Ole Miss and Alabama have a shot to get in if this second bracket does indeed happen. And honestly, the only thing it needs to happen is SMU beat Clemson. Because if SMU beats Clemson, that then opens the door for Miami, Ole Miss, and Alabama. I personally would have Miami in because they are 10-2. They're a Power 4 team, okay? Both of their losses are close. And correct me if I'm wrong, but aren't both of their losses on the road? I know their loss against Syracuse was, and I want to say against Georgia Tech as well. And to me, I would rather have Miami, who's got a fantastic offense, has had two close losses over two SEC 9-3 teams, that Ole Miss had a stinker against Kentucky, and Alabama laid an egg, only scoring 3 points against not a really good Oklahoma team. Granted, Oklahoma's got a pretty good defense. They just had no offense. But only scoring 3 points against a 6-6 Oklahoma team. I mean, granted, both Ole Miss and Alabama have wins over Georgia, and Ole Miss's win over Georgia was more convincing. I personally would have Miami in over Ole Miss and Alabama, but I got them on the screen as possible teams to take that 11 spot from Miami in my bracket because I've seen a lot of talk. I've seen a lot of outlets say which 9-3 team should be in: South Carolina, Alabama, Ole Miss. South Carolina fans, I'm sorry. Out of all three teams, y'all are the hottest team right now, hands down, without a shadow of a doubt, okay? But the problem is the problem with that is Ole Miss and Alabama both beat you. Now, Alabama only beat you by 2 points. Ole Miss spanked you. But the committee has shown us that they have honored the head-to-head. So I would have to assume both these teams would be in over South Carolina, and that's why I did not include South Carolina on this screen. But people, that is my two 12-team brackets. That's how I think and see it should or could play out. Like I said, on the second bracket, I could see you swapping Indiana and Ohio State. On the first bracket, I could see you swapping Boise State and Clemson. But ultimately, that's who I think are the 12. But in my personal opinion, like I said, I would have Miami in over Alabama and Ole Miss. But if the committee was going to pick a 9-3 team, I personally would go with Ole Miss because Ole Miss's loss to Kentucky, even though that was a stinker of a loss, it was a close loss. But at home, Alabama's bad loss was 24-3 on the road. Then they both beat Alabama. Ole Miss lost to LSU in overtime. Alabama beat LSU convincingly. I mean, it's up in the air, but as far as the entire season goes from start to finish, I think Ole Miss has been a better team. There's arguments for both. I do get it. But I think the committee should do the right thing. If SMU beats Clemson, they should put Miami in and just let all those 9-3 teams be mad. Instead of one or two of them be mad, make them all be mad. Miami's got a better record. They're a Power 4 team. They're 10-2, and you're comparing them against 9-3 opponents. But that argument will be shoved out the door as long as Clemson wins. If Clemson wins, Clemson and SMU is in. SMU being 11-2 and went to their conference championship game will be in my opinion, over Alabama, Ole Miss, or South Carolina, because they have 11 wins to Ole Miss, Bama's, and Carolina's 9, and 2 losses compared to 3. That's my opinion. Those are my brackets. I hope you guys enjoyed. Please let me know in the comment section down below what y'all think of these brackets and how you would have them laid out. As always, thank you all for watching. I'll see you next time.